We got to talk about the Miami Hurricanes and what we think about them being at ACC Media Days. Mario Cristobal was also at the podium this week as well, and saying that after week 4 from a season ago, it was a downturn for our defense. We slipped defensively, and I don't want to blame anyone. I should have asked, and I do ask, what I could have done better. Joe, when we look at the University of Miami going into 2025, and we talk about Cristobal's comments and about what they were doing defensively, the thing that comes to mind for me was literally what you and I went through the entire year last year when talking about the University of Miami. Do you remember what it was? It was literally us coming out here every week and me saying, you're going to get burned by this secondary at some point or another. Joe, they feel like that they have fixed that, and even Cristobal has brought that up. I guess your thoughts this week about Cristobal saying that he thinks they're going to be much, much better defensively going into the season.
So I have been pretty optimistic about what Corey Heatherman's going to do. And that the big part of the quote that he said that I think makes Miami fans feel better about this upcoming season is that he went as far as to say, we have enough evidence for us to feel comfortable in bringing him in, and he hasn't disappointed. I like that he's setting the tone early. I know that there's not anything that's been proven, though. Like that, nothing's happened on the field yet, so we can't jump to conclusions that this suddenly resolves every problem. I think it's worth noting, it's something that we've talked about a lot with this transition, is that last year they had the 5th least amount of yards allowed per game at Minnesota, 285.7, which is an insanely low number in modern football. That is like a 1980s level number that they were able to produce. Mm-hmm. Last year, Miami gave up 327.2 yards per game, which we know is one of the worst in the country. I really think that Heatherman is going to be a driving force for their success. And I think that Mario Cristobal is recognizing that there is a lot of pressure on him and on Heatherman to get this defense right. That is what needs to be better this year, ultimately. Like we spent all this time talking about Carson Beck, and I think that one thing we kind of missed, we feel pretty confident that Carson Beck and Shannon Dawson and this offense, the run game, the offensive line, that's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. They're not going to have any issues. Like they're a machine. They're a well-oiled machine right now after the way that they played last year. But they got to get up to par on defense. There's athletes all over that defense that have been banged up, have not played to form. Got to see Ruben Bain come out and dominate the way that we hope that he can dominate before he got hurt last year. So they have to step up to the plate. I stand by my original statements after the hire of Heatherman happened that I think he's going to be able to accomplish it because of the teams that they're facing in the ACC, that they will be able to be much stouter instead of being incredibly leaky every single week.
Joe, not only you say leaky, they were number 1 in the ACC defensively in their secondary and allowing explosive plays. I mean, think of Georgia Tech from a season ago. Think of Syracuse from a season ago. Hell, think of what happened against Virginia Tech and you almost losing that game. I mean, you're an overturn call away from you losing that one. There's a couple of things here. I do not think that they were bad defensively in their front seven with a lot of things that they had and injuries that they had last season. But, Joe, it's the explosive plays that killed them. You know, you look at their rushing defense and you look at what they did a season ago. Joe, they were in the top 20 in run defense. Joe, they just kept getting absolutely obliterated with explosive plays in their secondary. The thing that plagued them a year ago that I don't know if it was necessarily a play calling issue versus a personnel issue, which they have gone out and definitely changed different things in their secondary from a personnel standpoint. Joe, they couldn't get lined up in man-to-man coverage. And we talked about that every single week when we talked about Miami. Just personnel can change that. Xavier Lucas and all of them have played and went through a lot of football. I do think it's changed easily, and I don't like saying something that was so bad a year ago instantly changes. But, Joe, when you bring in different personnel and coaches, there's got to be a difference, because if there's not a difference, then, Mario, it does fall on you. I do think it was a little bit of a shot at Lance Guidry and trying to say, hey, I'm not trying to point blame, but as my grandfather said, everything you say before the word but is dog shit. You can't have the but. You are pointing the finger. All right, well, if you're going to point the finger, you better hope that changes. Joe, here's the real question. Every single year under Mario Cristobal, whether it be at Oregon or last year with Miami, there's been one centric question that's revolved around him at any of these stops. Joe, when is he going to overcome and win games when they matter the most? They are in the ACC championship game a year ago if they can beat Syracuse and Georgia Tech, if they don't falter down the stretch. That is plaguing Mario Cristobal more than anybody. Just because you left Oregon doesn't mean I forget about what you did at Oregon. Joe, Dan Lanning won the Big Ten in year 3. Now, I understand that you were in the Pac-12. I get all of that. But they're having more success under Dan Lanning. They went undefeated in the regular season. They beat Ohio State at home. Now, Ohio State cleaned their clock when it mattered the most, but that doesn't matter. Joe, the real question is not for me defensively. My question going into this year for Miami and Mario Cristobal specifically, hey, brother, it's time to either poo-poo or get off the pot. Because we've seen so many seasons of you being 10-2, 10-2, 10-2, 10-2, and you're right there in the mix of it. But when it mattered most, you couldn't win it when it mattered.
Well, and I think them getting to that level that you're talking about, it is supported by the improvement on defense. Or, sorry, it's supported by the projected improvement on defense. I think where they faltered last year a lot were in those bigger games where they needed a stop late. They ended up slipping. They ended up making the Syracuse, one of the better opponents that you played last year. You couldn't get the stops late in the fourth quarter when you needed to. I think now when you've got a much better defensive mind, you're going to be able to accomplish that. But I do agree with you that is a piece of this puzzle. That Dan Lanning has always been a good coach up until when they need to step up to the ball. Sorry, Mario Cristobal has always been a good coach, but when it's required of him to get the job done in a championship type setting, to send him to a championship, to win a conference championship, to get to the college football playoff, he has fallen short. They have to get that much further. I'm not saying that Mario needed to address that, but I think that where Mario has done a good job this offseason and also talking about this stuff is that they were very quick to immediately adjust once they realized Guidry was not getting the job done. There are plenty of coaches. We talked about this. There's plenty of coaches that will just sit with their assistants. Lincoln Riley's example A with Grinch. They will just sit with their assistants that they're buddies with and hope that they figure it out eventually, and then it ends up tanking them and setting them back multiple years. So that's where the potential optimism lies.
I mean, look, the bottom line is your secondary. Kyle McCord threw for 380 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, like, you rent and revamped it, but Joe, the question becomes, okay, again, Mario's in here saying basically, listen, we're going to be better there. I don't doubt that you'll be better there. I actually agree with you. The question for me is will you be? Because how many times am I going to see you at a program on the edge of doing something good and then falling short? And Miami fans, you're going to come in here and say, here goes Blake again. You got to start asking yourself that question, right? I mean, Joe, let me ask you, am I off base with that at all? Because no. I feel like that he's always there. I mean, and just falls short. And then, Joe, this coming off the situation of you not kneeling the football on 4th down either.
There's a lot of examples that I feel like we could come back to of them getting there, and then falling short.
Joe, we've all heard the saying, everything you say before the word but is bullshit, right? I think everybody that's watching this right now has heard that saying.
Well, you say a lot on the show.
Well,
yeah, I'm joking.
I use the word however to get around it, just so everybody knows.
It's true.
But, however, I need to see it from him. Stop pointing the finger.